Hello, everyone. Sorry this took so long. Again, in the middle of moving. If you can kind of see in the background, I've got a bunch of stuff still kind of all over the place as I'm trying to move, and I'm sweaty, nasty, and it's been one heck of a day. So, uh, anyway, this is in the beginning, and let's try to adjust this just a little bit. And see if we can make things look a little nicer. All right, little better. Eventually, I will get everything in this room set up, and things will look much nicer. I should have better setup, better lighting setup, so everything will go a lot smoother. But this channel is, or I should say, this show is going to be based on advice for DMs that are new to being DMs. Maybe they're getting ready to make their very first campaign or run their very first game or module, or DMs who just having trouble here or there with a couple things and are interested in getting a little bit of advice, looking at a different perspective, and perhaps being able to pull some of that information into their own games. So, first question is, why the heck should we listen to you? There's like a million people out there saying things like Matt Colville. Love Matt Colville. Love his show. He gives great advice. Nerdarchy. Love those guys. They have great advice. Everything. There's so many different shows out there that give advice to DMs. Why should I listen to this one? It's very simple. You should listen to all of them because everyone's going to have a different perspective. Everyone's going to have different ideas. And those ideas that you hear from one person might not work in your campaign. Ideas you hear from another person might not work in your campaign. But then you go to another person and, oh, hey, that might work. Or maybe just little bits and pieces from everybody come together for you so that you make something unique and that's your own that works for you and your players and your game. So that's why you should watch this show as well as the rest of those guys out there. So what we're going to talk about today is just starting out with the beginning of a campaign. What kinds of things do you need to consider? What things do you need to prepare for? And where the heck should I even start? So the topic I'm going to use for today is to come up with an overarching idea, a plot, if you will, but not something that you're going to set in stone, not something that you'll use to railroad your players, but something that you can shift from one scenario to another so that that plot, even if the players make crazy choices going other directions, can still exist and be something with which they can follow along in your world and create an epic story together with you and them all working together. So one example would be, all right, I need to have some kind of place to start with my players. And what's going on in the world in general compared to what my players are doing. And what is the threat to that world? So the way I start is I kind of throw around some ideas. Sometimes I'll watch videos from other DMs. I'll watch movies. I'll read books, whatever, to just start getting all sorts of ideas. And eventually something will spark and say, hey, that sounds like a good idea for a game. Perhaps it's, all right, I've got this cyberpunk type future that all my players are going to be in, and the overarching plot for this whole adventure or even a full campaign is that there is some great power that is attempting to make life bad in one way, shape, or form for everyone else, either just making it bad in general, enslaving people, slaughtering people, destroying the entire world, whatever. There is some entity that is, or some final, if you want to put it in terms of good and evil, some final evil that is doing something for its own purposes to the detriment of everybody else. So let's think of an example of that. Okay, uh, movie Armageddon. Okay, you've got this big ass asteroid, meteor, whatever you want to call it. Honestly, I can't remember which is the correct term right now. Uh, Worn out, for movie. But you've got this big asteroid that is hurtling toward Earth. So, is it really evil? No. But that is the ultimate evil, so to speak, in this story. Your heroes, well, that's obviously Bruce Willis and all the rest of the crew that jump on the shuttles and head up there to defeat that evil. Okay. Well, that's all fine and dandy if I'm looking for a short game. I've got this evil, or this world-ending event, or this threat that is coming down to destroy the entire planet, destroy everybody, and no more life on Earth. And then I've got these people, well, they find out about it, and they go deal with it. To me, that sounds like something you could steal, make some changes to, whatever, to make a one, maybe a two, three, four, a few sessions out of, if you will, but not necessarily a whole campaign. So what am I going to do for a whole campaign? Well, I could use that same idea, but let's expound on it. Okay, so I've got this threat. In this case, it's an asteroid heading towards Earth. Well, it doesn't have to be an asteroid. It doesn't even have to be something heading towards Earth. It's what it's doing. This is a world-ending event. So let's come up with ways to twist it and say, what could we make be a world-ending event that's not an asteroid? Well, we could have some in a science fiction game, maybe some world power or corporation or whatever is developing world-killing weapons. And their whole goal is to, take these weapons and run everything and just use the threat of them to, to stop anybody else from doing anything. But some of them get stolen. Now, people who might even be willing to use them and destroy the entire planet have them. So, what are we going to do about it? Well, again, if we give our players the information right off the bat, oh, here's the big problem, they're going to run right towards it. Okay. At least most players will. Some still always throw surprises at you. But generally, your players are, hey, we want to do good things. We want to save the world. We want to be heroes. So your players, you give them the answer right off the bat and say, hey, here's the major threat. A lot of times they'll run right for it, and they're not necessarily prepared. Unless you're running a one-off or just a couple sessions and you're starting them at higher levels to begin with. But if you're wanting to run like a full campaign, level 1 all the way to 20, and I'm speaking 5th edition here, if anyone jumps in the chat and they've got questions on 3.5 or any other editions, we can discuss that a little bit, because the overarching themes of being a DM and preparing for your adventures really go across the board. It's just some of the specifics and mechanics and stuff that you have to worry about when you start getting into the minutia of creating different things. Okay, but when you're looking at the big picture here, this what's my big bad evil guy? In this case, we're saying it's a missile that, when fired, goes up into orbit, comes down, destroys the world, and the bad guys have it. Okay, somebody thought they'd make it, but now the bad guys have it, and they're willing to use it because They don't care. They say, you know, we don't care if we live or die. We're taking everyone with us. Heroes go right after them. So how do I make that into a campaign? Well, you start out small. You leave that big event, that big bad evil guy, and everything leading up to it in the background. You say, this is where something I want my players to deal with when they are prepared to deal with it. So let's say that's, you're trying to have a, end of the long campaign, 20th level battle that they finally face the big bad evil guys who have this world-ending missile, and whatever happens based on their choices and dice rolls happens, but that's what you want, something epic, climactic, just caps everything off. So leave that at the end. Let everything in the world happening slowly start feeding into that. Okay, so what would it take to make that kind of weapon? Maybe it's a special material, like in order to make nuclear weapons on Earth here, we need special materials like plutonium or uranium or things like that. And they're not the easiest things to come by and highly regulated. So maybe there's a low-level theft of some of that material that starts out early in the game. Okay, and it's the big bad evil guys maybe trying to make one of their make something of their own instead of stealing this weapon that is being created by somebody else. Maybe they don't know there's a weapon being created by somebody else, but they have ideas on how to build something that is powerful, and maybe they're trying that. Maybe it's a break-in at a facility that the company that's or organization that's building this world-ending weapon has some of the research and plans at, and there was a break-in there, and you, being the heroes, are all tasked with, hey, find out what the heck's going on. We're gonna hire you kind of like private detectives or whatever, and see if you can figure this out because it's making me nervous. Or however you want to handle it, but something small. It gives some small amount of information to the players, something that will make a lot more sense when they get further through this whole storyline that they're dealing with and eventually get to the climactic ending. But you can throw whatever you want at them to make a nice balanced encounter and something that fits with the themes of your world, and not have to worry about, oh, okay, this encounter at the end, well, they're not going to rush straight toward it at that point because they don't even know about it. They don't know all the details. So you come up with an idea, and then you start spoon-feeding details. So how am I over 20 levels, which, let's face it, depending on how you run the game, XP or milestones, I typically do milestones, you can end up taking a year and a half or so to go from 1st to 20th. It really depends on how you do it. So that's a long time. So how am I going to keep that final epic confrontation where it is, and without railroading my players or convincing them, pushing them or doing anything to make them go down a path? How am I going to keep them interested and following that eventual trail that leads to the end? Well, put in some kind of sub-points and subplots between that final point and where they start. So let's say maybe you throw in something that is built more, for like a 5th, 6th, 7th level party, and you're expecting when they get around to that level that this bit of information or this act in this grand play that you guys are all creating is something that is coming to fruition, and then you can feed them some information so that they may start examining and following down that trail. Okay, between that point in the beginning, you treat it just like you would the point in the very end. You don't give them all the information right away, or they'll just run straight for it and try to fix the problem right away. You feed it to them a little bit at a time, okay? And you let it happen through their gameplay. You know, Rogue wants to go investigate or gather some information within the city and see if something was suspicious about that break-in at that facility. Now, they didn't really take any money. We can't really find out what they took. I wonder if there's another way to find out what information was in there. So maybe they now start doing some digging, and you give them some information detailing plans to build, powerful weaponry, missiles and things like that that are extremely powerful. Okay? Like, on the order of like nuclear weapon type stuff. Okay. Well, that track, they start going down it, and they start, following that pathway. Great. What if they don't? What if they choose to go do something else? No problem. Intersperse clues along the paths they choose. You don't have to have this point here and this point here. Let's say we got these 2 points. Okay. Now, what I'm going to say is this point here and this one are in a direct line from each other right now. Well, I don't have to have that. I can have this point right here all of a sudden say, hey, you know what? The characters started going in this direction. So I can shift the location or the people involved and everything up here and adjust the information so that if they're going in that direction, I put the information that they need in their path so that even if they are going down some other route, they can find information they need that eventually can lead them to, again, these little key points in between that are help building that overall plot. So take the time to think up what is your main threat, your main big bad evil guy. Is it a natural event? Is it a natural person? Is it something caused by supernatural powers? Whatever it is. Figure out what is my threat that I want the PCs to deal with by the end of this campaign. Okay. And then from there, build in points along the way to help reinforce what's going to happen at the end and help kind of lead them down that trail with information. And be able to be flexible with where you place that information. Don't tie it to a specific location. That's one of the key problems that I had initially, is that I would say, all right, we've got this dead body with a note on it that just so happens to be located in this cave system. And in order for the plot to continue, the PCs need to find that information. But what if they never go to the cave system? Yeah, it happens all the time. PC, players love to do their own thing, which is awesome. Absolutely awesome. It makes for some of the most unexpected and fun moments in a game when you allow your players to do that. Don't be afraid to allow that to happen. But why did that dead body and that note have to be in the cave? Why did the note even have to be on a dead body? Why did it even have to be a note? Okay, depends on what you're dealing with. Okay, if PCs go one direction, take the time to say, okay, what information do I want them to have for this next kind of subplot point or main plot point, and how can I put it in their path so that they are able to take a look at it and use that information to continue towards the end goal. So that's, coming up with that main threat, that main goal. Now, once you've done that, don't lock yourself in. If you've done a good job of kind of seeding along the way all these different little subplots and feeding information, and your pieces are following along with oh, excuse me, and your PCs are following along that trail of information heading right towards your goals and what you're planning on overall. Great, awesome. Okay, it means that you have a little less work to do because you've already thought these things out. But sometimes, no matter what information you throw in front of people, they're going to choose to go a different path or, chase down some other thing because it's what's interesting to them. Let them. Let them do it. Listen to what the players are interested in by watching the actions of their PCs and communicate with your players. Talk to them out of game. Actually sit down. Okay. If you're doing a game online, take time every once in a while to sit down with your players and discuss with them, hey, what do you want for your character? Find out what your players and their characters want. Because if you haven't done that ahead of time, that coming up with an idea and putting it all together, you might be on a completely wrong track for what your players are interested in. Okay? So we're going to take a step back because I think this is actually more important, is having that communication with your players from the beginning. Having a session zero. Sitting down with your players. If you've never heard the term session zero before, then you probably haven't played a lot of D&D. Most people who have played D&D, they've heard of that term before. But don't feel bad if you haven't. Hey, I'd be glad to say I was your first time to introduce you to what a session zero is. So, all right. So, have a session zero. This is a game session where you don't necessarily play anything of the game. You sit down with your players and you help them build their characters. But before you can do that, you have to tell them, okay, this is what I'm planning on for a game world. I'm looking at playing a game that is, let's say, high fantasy, kind of maybe traditional Dungeons and Dragons style high fantasy game. Lots of magic, lots of wonderful class abilities and all these things, and the traditional races and classes within it. Okay. That's what I'm looking at doing. Okay. And then say, how does that sound to you guys? Pitch it to them, see what they think. Maybe the people you're getting together with to play a game, maybe half of them don't want to play that. Maybe half of them want to play more like a Wild West genre. Maybe they want to play a sci-fi type genre. So discuss with them what kind of game you guys want to play. For yourself, have a couple ideas. If you just want to do high fantasy, make that clear that, hey, that's the only thing I'm going to do. But be prepared that if your players say, we don't want to do that at all, you might not be running a game. So pick a couple genres and pick some kind of hooks for each one. Say, hey, look, in this style, I'm looking at doing something a little unique in my world. Instead of humans being kind of the base default generic class that they really are in most D&D, of there's humans everywhere. They're like rats, and they're very versatile, and they pretty much just whatever. Humans in my world, there's very, 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 very few of them. In fact, the world is mostly filled with goblins. Some elves, some dwarves, some orcs, but mostly goblins. So it's a high fantasy game, but guess what? You're most likely going to be goblins. In fact, if you do pick goblins, I give you bonuses. Just, maybe make that a hook so that to be a little interesting. Come up with an idea and say, but it's got to be something you want to play and something you want to run. Okay? So pitch those ideas to your players at a session 0. You get together, you talk, and say, "This is what I'm looking to play. How does that sound to you guys?" Okay. Hopefully, eventually, your players will agree with you on one of the options you've given them. Then, once that's done, help them to make their players. Okay, and know what rules that you are going to allow and not allow. For example, if you're making a game where goblins are the majority of creature in the entire world, maybe there's a few races that are completely extinct. Maybe there are no halflings. Maybe they've been wiped out. Heck, maybe it's all, since goblins aren't the tallest in the world, maybe there's some heightism and goblins exist, halflings exist, gnomes exist, dwarfs exist, and some of the shorter elves may have survived, but anybody above a certain height, take them out. So maybe several of the more average size races were wiped out. So no, hey, there's not going to be any humans in my game. There's no Goliaths in my game. There's no orcs in my game, or half orcs. Okay, let the players know those rules. Hey, these classes I'm not going to allow just because. If that's your choice, then make sure they know that. And if they say, "Yep, that's the game I want to play in," awesome. But again, the more restrictions you put on people, and the more you say, "This is what I'm doing," no ifs, ands, or buts, you run the risk of players saying, "Nope, don't want to play," and that can happen. So, I prefer for my own games to allow almost anything, with a few exceptions here and there based on some OP builds and a couple things like that. My games, I try to run them more role play and less min max. So, if I've got a player in there that's really trying to min max, I want to make sure that they know, hey, look, if this is what you're trying to build your character as, and you're going in this direction, I don't allow this just because it is too overpowered and you will basically overshadow everyone else in the party, and that's going to make it no fun for them. So I go ahead and make those rules known. So have your ideas on what kind of game you want to play. Have some ideas on what things you want to allow and not allow. Okay. If you don't know, just say, all right, I'm going kind of standard everything. And you know what? How about this? If there's something that you want to make, a class, a race, whatever, that you want to take from some other source, okay, you have to tell me about it ahead of time and give me time to read up a little bit about it to see if it's going to fit in my ideas in my head for this game that I'm playing. So don't be afraid to say, "I'm not sure," but give me some time to look this up and then let me decide. And then don't be afraid to say no if, hey, sorry, this is just not going to work for this game. But here's some other options. Once again, it's about being flexible and communicating and working together. You may have to make some compromises. Your players may have to make some compromises. But at the end of the day, if you sit down with them and you talk these things out and you have everybody kind of build their characters together, and you get ideas for them, and if they ask you for help, you can help them out a little bit. Everyone kind of comes together in the end during that session 0. Okay. Now that doesn't have to be in person. The current game we're running on this channel, our Blackest Heart campaign, that's all online. But we communicate via Discord. We've got messages going throughout the week, back and forth between myself and players and stuff like that. And usually before the games and after the games, we connect online and we'll chat for a bit about what the players are wanting to do, what their characters are thinking since the last session, and we talk everything out. And I like to think we have some pretty good communication as to what they want and expect, and what I expect as well, as far as my rules and stuff in the game. So that when it comes down to a point where, what can I do here? What can I do here? Etc. That players aren't surprised by decisions that I make, and I'm not, thrown completely off the rails and off track for the game by things that they or their characters do. And that's all about having communication. Uh, so that, I think, actually is probably one of the biggest things that needs to happen for new DMs. Talk to your players, communicate with them, work together, and that way you'll know, okay, whatever I'm building is going to work. Okay, because we've all discussed what we want, we all agree, and so that's what I'm going to build this game as. So, what do we do after that? I just had a session with everyone sitting around and we talked everything out. What do I do now? Well, now you got to take time to build out your plot, build out your world. Like, now we're going back to, what is that ultimate threat? That's where I start my game builds. I figure, where's the ultimate threat? So at that point, again, take inspiration from movies, from books, from TV shows, from Twitch streams of other DMs that are running games, watching another game, Saber Dice podcast. You can watch those. Critical Role, watch, Matt Mercer and the Critical Role cast going nuts, in their games. And, beg, borrow, cheat, steal ideas that you can put into your own game. Okay? I'll tell you one thing. There is nobody that is going to knock at your door and send the police to your door, pounding on your door, because you ran a session that was exactly like the last couple sessions from Critical Role, where you had the exact same encounters planned out, the exact same monsters and everything like that. Okay. No one's going to come and pound on your door while you're sitting around a table with your friends and go, copyright infringement, I'm going to get you. No one's doing that. Okay. Now, if you're recording your games, putting them out on the internet and stuff like that, okay, there you could possibly deal with issues. But if you're not recording your games, if it's just you and your friends, or you and some friends that you met online that are just playing the games for yourselves, beg, borrow, cheat, steal. Okay? Get anywhere that you can get inspiration. Okay? It doesn't even have to be visual inspiration. It just, stuff you hear. Could be music. You could hear a song, and the words to the song and the feel that music gives you might give you an idea for an encounter, or an adventure, or maybe a bad guy, okay, or some other NPC. Okay. For example, in our Blackest Heart campaign, in a recent episode, the party, specifically Rhea herself, I think she was the only one who went there, encountered a shopkeeper named Mick Honahue. That's right, McConaughey, Matthew McConaughey. And he sounded, I did my best, not a voice actor, not perfect at it, But I tried to do my best to kind of give that Matthew McConaughey, you know, laid back attitude, speech like, all right, So, but I just thought, hey, what if I've got a shopkeeper that is just basically Matthew McConaughey? So that's, what I mean. Take your inspiration from wherever you want, right? And use that in your game. So come up with your overarching threat and for your campaign, and you can take that from anywhere: movies, books, music, whatever. Okay, a sign you saw on the side of a little rain shelter at the bus stop while you were waiting to catch the bus. Whatever it is, just absorb media, and eventually something will stick and something will give you an idea. Go ahead and run with that idea. Okay, flesh it out. Make that something real for you that you can be excited about. Okay? But remember, it should fit with whatever you've already discussed in a session 0 with the rest of your group members, your players. So keep in mind, all right, I've got all these things that I've been watching. I've got some ideas going out here. Does this really fit? Maybe, maybe not. How about this? I could make it fit. Tweak it. And barring any of that, okay, I myself do this. Reach out for help. Okay, there's Facebook groups out there. There's websites specifically devoted to it. There's forums and all this where you can reach out to other dungeon masters who have been dungeon masters for a long time, and it's basically like watching videos like this. The more you ask for information, or the more people that you get the opinion of on how to handle situations, the more ideas you come up with as how to handle it for your group that's going to be appropriate for your group. So reach out on those sources. Ask those questions. Say, hey, look, I'm a newbie DM. I need help. Please. This is what the situation is. This is what I'm encountering. I don't know what to do. Somebody help me. There's a Facebook group that I'm a part of that there's tons of messages like that all the time. And lots and lots of wonderful responses from some, pretty good DMs. So it's worth it to ask around. Okay, use sources like that to help you through problems. But that's kind of the episode for today. Like I said, sorry again about this being late. Sorry about supposed to be at noon. We're normally going to go. I'm thinking making them about half an hour to 45 minutes maximum. So kind of about what we've gotten here. But because I was moving, things got pushed back a little bit. And then I said start at 1, and I was about 10 minutes late. So I apologize for that. But we will be doing new episodes of this show every Saturday and starting at noon. However, I do have a disclaimer to make. This is not my day job. This is something I do for fun. And I have to travel quite a bit for work. In fact, I will be traveling very, very soon and will not be around this next Saturday. Therefore, I will actually be recording on my phone if I can get everything to work down there, because I'm going to be out of the country. I'm going to try to record a half-hour episode and upload that. So it won't be live next week, but I'm going to try to do that so that we can at least upload an episode. But whenever I'm in town, I will be right here Hopefully with the room looking a little bit cleaner, a little nicer, maybe a little decoration, who knows. But I will be right here, and I don't know what just happened. There we go. All right. I'll be right here Saturdays at noon, and anyone watching, please, please, please feel free to jump in on the chat. Get in there, type up questions. Currently, I'm not seeing any. I don't know if something's going on with it and it's not working. I'm going to try refreshing it. But it could just be that no one is actually watching the stream and typing the chat, which, no worries. Like I said, I'm really doing this for fun for myself. So, not a big deal, but let's just see if I can double check this. Just real quick. Man, it's being a little slow, so. Alright, I just wanted to see if we could test. Is there a way to test on? Alright, there we go. So, it does indeed work, so if anyone out there who is watching, when I am in town, I will be live streaming from between noon to about 12:30, 12:45. This show. Please feel free to type in the chat if you have questions about a specific topic that you want to hear about, or just a question about what we're discussing. And I will do my best to. I've got those showing up, so I'll do my best to answer those as best I can. And if you like what you see here, if you like the advice, please let me know. Our next topic is currently up to you guys. So please, if you would, type a comment down in the chat before I turn this off. Or if you're watching this on VOD, okay, you can go to our Facebook page for Totally Online Gaming Group. You can leave a message there. You could go to our Twitter and you could send a message there. I will probably tweet out a couple times in the week, hey, what topics are people interested in? Or if you're watching on YouTube, we will replay these episodes on YouTube. Most likely Tuesday is probably when I'll get them put up on YouTube. So if you're watching on there, leave a message in the comments to let us know, so that that way on our next episode of In the Beginning, we can start focusing on topics that you guys want to hear. All right. Thank you very much for coming to In the Beginning, and I will see you guys next time.